Welcome back to the Progress Texas Happy Hour. I'm podcasting director Chris Mosier. The Office of Attorney General tends to be overlooked by some in terms of its profile and its importance on the stage of Texas politics. One would think that it would mainly be a role dedicated to an unbiased and impartial enforcement of Texas law. Basic as that. The top law enforcement official in the state should be expected to adhere to the expectations that the public has of the rest of the law enforcement apparatus. The Attorney General should first and foremost protect and serve the people of Texas with impeccable integrity and transparency. But, of course, this is Texas we're talking about. Our current and by current appearances soon-to-be former Attorney General Ken Paxton could not have fallen short of that basic goal more spectacularly, presiding over an office marred by scandal, including an impeachment triggered by the concerns of his own deputies and including an extramarital affair. Ken Paxton's AG's office has been about Ken Paxton's personal political partisan gain, and all quite openly. Paxton's predecessor in this key position was, of course, Governor Greg Abbott, who might have been a little more professional about things, but he was certainly no less partisan. The governor famously once described his workday as, quote, "I go into the office, I sue the federal government, and I go home," unquote. Much like Greg Abbott's other attempts to be funny or clever lately, even as far back as 2002, Texas Republicans have used the Attorney General's office as a legal cudgel against their opposition, not as a safeguard for justice in Texas. Ken Paxton's run for Senate is not only exciting for Texas Democrats as an opportunity to topple a highly questionable and toxic candidate, it also presents an opportunity for change at the Attorney General's office in a midterm election that's being judged at the moment as offering the best prospects that the Democrats have seen in years. And we're proud to welcome a lifelong Texan who's noticing that opportunity, former Galveston mayor and Houston area attorney Joe Jaworski. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Chris. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to have you with us. And let's not beat around the bush. Let's get right to it. Tell us why we're talking this morning, Joe.
Well, Chris, I'm running to be your next Texas Attorney General. And here's why. Texas urgently needs more Democrats to serve in state government because Republican politicians are corruptly harming the state with their selfish, unconstitutional, and illegal efforts to hold on to power. Chris, think about it. Under Republican politicians' control, Texas government is no longer capable of solving problems. Instead, it's all about waking up in the morning and suing the federal government when Abbott was AG. But these days, now that Abbott is governor and Ken Paxton, his trusty consigliere by his side, Texas government is all about mid-decennial census gerrymandering to remove Congress members of color, forbidding innovations to make voting easier, and in fact, Chris, suppressing the vote, repeatedly suing cities and counties to destroy local decision-making authority. And as a former mayor of Galveston, that is harmful to cities. It's offensive to local leaders. How about defunding public education wholesale? And then, of course, the cherry on top, accepting $1 million political gifts from donors seeking private influence. Paxton's acquittal and the voucher scheme passage are recent examples. My view, and the reason I'm running, is that Democrats in sufficient numbers can push back against this harmful power grab and save the state from further collapse and embarrassment. And to your point, Chris, Texas specifically needs a Democrat to serve as Attorney General to investigate corruption, to hold those who are corrupt responsible, and to form coalitions with other states' attorneys general to fight the administration's assault on individual rights and on the United States Constitution. And I'm uniquely qualified to lead that office.
Very, very good. So I met you for the first time during the 2022 election cycle, and I was struck by your energy and your thoughtful approach to what Texas needs out of this key office, back even as far back as that. And we'll get to all that, of course, but give us a quick reintroduction to your career, to you personally and your background, and make sure and not leave out your granddad.
I love it. Well, Chris, I grew up in Houston, Texas, and went to every opportunity to learn how to play drums. That was my big thing. I am a drummer my whole life. So, that's a little piece of information, you may not know about Joe Jaworski, but I do come from a family of attorneys, my grandfather, Leon, my father, Joseph, and I'm very proud to be the third generation Jaworski lawyer. And my son is just right behind as a fourth generation, and I'm proud of him too. I started off practicing law after graduating from the University of Texas School of Law, where I met my wife, Rebecca, and she's a lawyer too, Chris. First job was working for Eisenhower appointee to the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, the famous jurist John R. Brown, who was a civil rights icon and an admiralty master. And so what a great experience it was. I worked for him when he was 81 years old. And it was just the greatest source of wisdom. From that, I practiced maritime law in Houston and all around the American Gulf Coast, Gulf of Mexico, to be clear. And this was a constitutional practice, admiralty courts and admiralty jurisdiction and maritime jurisdiction. So you're in federal court mainly, which, is a nice complement to what the Attorney General is going to do, since it seems like all our civil rights and all our constitutional rights are in federal court. So you should ask yourself, what candidates have deep federal court experience? After spending 6 years on the defense side, I had the most liberating experience, which is moving to the plaintiff's side, where I spent 12 years practicing law, representing men, women, and children who were harmed or killed by wrongdoers and malefactors. And it was truly an experience interconnecting with these people in their worst hour, as we've seen disasters strike, negligence kills, and you need lawyers who know something about getting a result and getting it promptly. Then I became a full-time mediator, where I now have created two specialties, Chris. One is property damage mediations. That is the abundant windstorms from the Gulf and inland that damage people's property. They have rights, and it's a real pleasure to work with the first cause, is what I call them, because they are there to help people with their own insurance rather than suing someone else's insurance. And then the second thing I do is I help veterans and military contractors who have been injured in the war on terror. They are working for our security interests in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Syria, and in other places where apparently they're not allowed to describe. And when they get hurt, they have a remedy. The lawyers hire me. I help settle the case. Above all, being a lawyer in Texas is where it's at. You can help change the rights and liabilities as they flow and help people. This is what I want to do as Texas Attorney General, because right now we don't have a lawyer that's helping people. We have a prosecutor, and he's going after individuals who need representation the most. We're going to reverse that and change Texas.
Love it. So back to Galveston and your time as mayor there, that came in the wake of Hurricane Ike. And as we speak, Texas is just beginning the recovery from that terrible flood of July 4th. What can you draw from your experience back during your mayoral term that might inform your take on this current situation?
Well, I ran for Galveston mayor shortly after suing the University of Texas system and all of the Rick Perry appointed regents, because after Hurricane Ike, 2 months after, they decided to fire 4,500 employees employed at the University of Texas Medical Branch. This is the iconic teaching hospital in the state of Texas that after the 1900 storm, a telegraph was sent by the governor, "Are you closed?" And they responded, "The University of Texas Medical Branch closes for no storm." But that legacy apparently was not on the executive's mind at the Regents when they decided to fire 4,500 people with the stroke of a pen. Well, Chris, that was illegal. And so I filed suit to enforce the Open Meetings Act, where you don't get to go into executive session to discuss firing even one person, much less 4,500 people. I was able to keep the case in Galveston, even though they tried to transfer it, hiring some of the best and brightest minds in Texas. We defeated them at this high stakes hearing and created a settlement program where people would be hired back, and they were. Now, University of Texas Medical Branch is splendid and stronger than ever. From that experience, I remember reading in the newspaper the summer of 2009, "Does anyone have a vision for rebuilding Galveston?" And Chris, remarkably, none of the incumbents on council answered the call. So I wrote a now infamous column in the Galveston Daily News that answered the question, "What is your vision?" And from that, I ran for mayor. I was elected in a 5-way race without a runoff. What happened next, I think, is the most important thing, because we were rebuilding with federal dollars. And this is where an appreciation of the various levels of government comes into play. Right now, you cannot find a Republican in Texas who would have ever taken a dollar from the Obama administration or the Biden administration without spitting.
Right.
And that is a complete effacement of what government should be. Government is there to help you. And by the way, anytime it's federal money, it's probably based in part on the income tax that we pay every April. So really, we're just trying to claim our bounty to come back to Texas to serve us. So anyone who gives you this lip that the feds are the enemy are actually being ridiculous. Are you going to, get rid of the income tax? No. Well, then what are you doing? Well, anyway, as mayor, it was a great experience to work with state and federal officials to rebuild Galveston. We had close to $1 billion, Chris, and we built, back fire stations, airports. We helped the hospital rebuild, and most importantly, private homes and public homes. And so I was very innovative in rebuilding public housing, Chris. We didn't want to just rebuild apartments like had been there. They were built in the Johnson and Kennedy administration, and trust me, they were well past their shelf life. Instead, we built mixed income housing, which means, people that are lawyers and doctors, nurses and firemen and teachers, and income eligible Galvestonians, all living in prime property together at various strata of affordable rates. It was a game changer for Galveston, and everybody deeply appreciates it now.
Very, very cool. That reminds me of the similar circumstances under which our state has failed to expand Medicaid as well, which is, our money that we could easily be, employing to help our own people, but we don't for some reason. And yeah, your point is well taken there. So let's back up just a little bit and give me a little bit of explain like we're five here. Tell us specifically what the Attorney General and the AG's office do, or really, given current context, what they're supposed to do as compared to what they've been doing under Republican rule.
Right. Well, there's what I call the statutory and constitutional duties. I mean, the Attorney General is supposed to defend the state in court and the various agencies of the state in court. The Attorney General has been assigned the duty to collect and disperse child support. The Attorney General is responsible for issuing legal opinions, Attorney General opinions. The Attorney General's office has to pass a blessing on all public bonds. So school districts, cities, and counties, if you want to improve your high school or build new roads or do water flood prevention, and you issue a bond based on general revenue taxation, the AG's office has to agree to that and bless it. There are other items. The Attorney General is now getting into partisan warfare and trying to extend his duties. Wants to have a voter integrity unit, which means a voter harassment unit. Let's be clear. More importantly, the Attorney General can do things or refrain from doing things. For example, where was the Attorney General taking the side of the victims of the Uvalde shooting? He is taking money from the National Rifle Association, which means we're not getting an unbiased attitude about certain, habits and certain opportunities in Texas. Where is the Attorney General on the question of helping people vote? He is part of the cabal that wants to keep people suppressed from voting. He's also pursuing helpless people that constitute a very minority number of our population, trans students. I mean, again, perhaps some of the most defenseless people our state has to offer. And here's Ken Paxton literally harassing them, suing them, and making them fear for their lives. Going after friends who are helping other women in difficult pregnancies, suing them, helping to harass them. So I would say, Chris, that what the AG does and doesn't do have equal standing. And Ken Paxton's choices are all about self-promotion and keeping Republicans in power, no matter the substance of their policy, because power serves their interests.
Right. Very, very good. So it's early on, clearly, but what can you tell us about the Republicans who have started lining up to run for this office? And if not personally, what should we expect from who eventually gets nominated to, to run for this office?
Well, there were hints of this in 22 when Ken Paxton had a robust primary, but now it's just completely out on the table. It's like whoever Donald Trump wants. And so you have Mays Middleton, my senator from Galveston, who is, extremely conservative to the point of religious extremism, which, in a secular society is not appropriate. He clearly wants to be governor, and this is a stepping stone to get there. Mays has no experience as an actual attorney, but as a conservative politician, the attorney general office fits like a nice, fine coat. But he is not a practicing lawyer. And I think the attorney general ought to be someone who is familiar with federal and state courts. Even if you're going to have someone else argue the positions, Chris, I think that the Texas attorney general ought to be able to take the lead chair on matters of vital importance. You then have Aaron Reitz, who is an attorney and has been chief of staff for Ted Cruz and worked in the Trump Department of Justice for about 2 or 3 months. And he is actually, I think, even more MAGA or conservative than Mays Middleton. And then you have Joan Huffman, who is a Texas senator since 2008 and has ample courtroom experience. She was an assistant district attorney in Harris County, and then a criminal bench judge, and then went to the Texas Senate. So she's certainly going to be able to give the two men what for when it comes to courtroom experience, to the extent that matters. But what I would say is all three of them are going to have to survive a Republican primary where Donald Trump's choice will ultimately manifest him or herself. And that's the person who's going to win, regardless of money or regardless of what the voters really think.
Interesting. So this office being statewide, it's important for progressive voters to know about you in terms of where you stand on primary issues. So I want to do a little semi-lightning round here. Give us just a few sentences or just a couple of minutes on each of these different topics. And these come from Progress Texas's Certified Progressives Values Questionnaire, which you can actually find at our website at progresstexas.org. I'll go from the top. Tell us your views on reproductive rights as they stand in Texas right now and where you'd try to take that.
Chris, Texas adopts an unreasonable, religious crusader level conservative stance on this matter, and eliminating abortion on religious grounds is unworkable and completely out of touch in a state of 32 million and growing. The highest courts won't help. We as Texas citizens can't initiate legislation because the Constitution doesn't allow it. So we need to put the question of abortion to the voters in the only way we can, which is 2/3 of each chamber. Now, that's going to require substantial change in the partisan membership of the Texas House and Senate. I want to see a return to Roe v. Wade, a standard where women can receive abortion care up to fetal viability outside the womb. And, I'm not an OB-GYN, but everyone can do their own research and find that it's somewhere in the 23 to 24 week gestational age era. Choice is superior to abortion bans because everyone can decide within reasonable regulations what's best for their family.
Talk about your environmental stance and specifically as it applies to energy in Texas. We have a robust renewable energy industry in this state. What are your views on environmental sustainability in Texas?
Well, leaning into science and technology can reverse the effects of man-made climate change. And alongside that, we have oil and gas production is tied to Texas's, personality wholesale.
Sure.
A perfect example is the 1876 Constitution, our most recent draft, set aside 2.1 million acres in West Texas for the benefit of the Texas A&M Texas University of Texas system and Texas A&M system. It's called the Permanent University Fund, and we have leased that land to oil and gas producers, so the royalties from that go to benefit our major Tier 1 universities. But what our lawmakers should always do is promote non-fossil fuel energy solutions into the market and promote scientific solutions and technological advances. Why on earth, after Winter Storm Uri, would we have put a thumb on the scale to prevent clean energy, wind, solar from benefiting Texans all across the state? Look, in a capitalist society, which we clearly are, incentivizing good corporate behavior works wonders. And if the government takes no interest in regulating good corporate behavior, then big business won't either. We should financially incentivize clean energy. So as we wean off oil and gas in the coming years, decades, we will have an ample supply. As the Attorney General, what I will tell you is, I understand oil and gas with technology and science can be done more safely than it is today. So we need to have leaders who are brave and will, I don't want to say, sue or stand up to, but that's really what it's going to come down to, because it is these people who provide the oil and gas that helps fuel our economy. I get it, but it needs to be done safely so that we don't have environmental justice issues where people are, inhaling benzene and getting cancer unnecessarily. There are ways to capture that sort of thing.
How about economic opportunity, workers' rights, the role of unions? And, in this current moment, people are thinking about AI and how that's going to affect the job force in the coming years. Give us your views in general on that.
Well, it always kills me when I hear about lawyers getting busted by judges for using AI to file briefs, and then it just creates law that doesn't even exist. And the judges finally have show cause hearings why these lawyers shouldn't be sanctioned. So attorneys, please watch out. But first off, we live in a state where the minimum wage is $7.25, unacceptable. It may be a federal minimum wage still, but states are allowed to go higher, and most do. Cities like Houston and Dallas and Austin have increased locally. So what people need to know about Attorney General Joe Jaworski is, I will respect local decision-making authority while we try to get the state to do better than $7.25. I am a proud supporter of labor and have been since my early days on the Galveston City Council. Chris, I was proud to earn the AFL-CIO endorsement last run for Attorney General, and I intend to seek to earn it again. I'm a friend of labor. I've been there at the plants in Texas City for shift change before dawn. I've been there in Beaumont, standing with the steel workers when they were locked out at Exxon. Texas labor will have a friend in the OAG with Joe Jaworski.
Very good. Closely related to that, of course, is healthcare. We talked about our state's failure or refusal, really, to expand Medicaid over the last few years when so many other states have done so. Talk about healthcare in terms of and what you see as the just situation of access for Texans.
Well, the Affordable Care Act, hit a home run when it eliminated the pre-existing condition exclusion. That was transformative. And in the mediations that I do every single day, in fact, I'm going to do one after this interview, it is a key element to people regaining their health. Imagine if there hadn't been progressive Democratic policy applied to public health during the Obama administration. What I would also say is expanding Medicaid is a choice, and illuminating choice. States in other areas of the United States do take that money. Texas refuses it, which the other states are happy to hear about. It's sad because rural hospitals all over the state are closing because they know they rely on Medicaid. It is remarkable to me, as we said earlier, that it's our federal tax dollars attempting to migrate home like so many flocks of birds for the change of season. And the governor is saying no. The legislature is saying no. And so here's what happens, Chris. Your county tax bill goes much higher because counties, in the scheme of Texas interconnected government, is what pays for public health. So you should ask your Republican legislator again, you keep turning down Medicaid. Is there a connection to how high my county taxes are for the public hospital in my county? And let's just see what their answer is. That alone is a reason to elect Democrats, because we are prescient on this matter. For years, we have been saying, why are we turning down? And I'm telling you, Chris, it's like $5 to $6 billion a year. And since the 2008 election of President Obama, we're talking over $100 billion turned away.
Well, talk about public education. We have just gone through this last session where the Republican majority finally got their wish and they got their private school vouchers. Talk about that situation and how you might treat it moving forward as AG.
All right, so I'm speaking as the next Texas Attorney General. I am adopting that mantle. And imagine me saying this before the United States Supreme Court. The Texas voucher scheme violates the Texas Constitution because it takes public dollars raised to support public education and gives it to private schools. What's also galling is it was bought and paid for by millions of dollars in out-of-state political contributions that were used to disparage and defame Republican legislators who were all with Greg Abbott on everything except for the vouchers because they were voting their district, which is, I think, what we all want our various legislators in the House and the Senate to do. Not good enough for Greg Abbott. So he actually sent mail pieces paid for with Pennsylvanian millionaire money to defame and disparage these poor souls, who then, of course, lost. And then he installed pre-selected puppets who would vote a certain way, and Greg Abbott gets his wish. Well, here, the state of Texas is not being served. The state of Texas is not, Chris, the 85 House members, the 20 senators, and the one governor who signed the bill who passed it. So just imagine a pretty stout court challenge. And like other states, I foresee the voucher scheme is going to be ruled unconstitutional under the Texas Constitution, if not the United States Constitution.
I had kind of forgotten about how far back that drama went. That goes all the way back to the prior session and really even sessions before that. So, wow, what a reminder there. Moving on, talk about LGBTQIA plus equality and our friends who face, and you've already mentioned this a little bit, face an inordinate amount of hassle from the legal structure of Texas under Ken Paxton. Talk about that.
Well, first off, these are Texans. These are purely matters of civil rights. They are protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment. And as Texas Attorney General, I will not harass and persecute non-heterosexual individuals. I will respect and protect these citizens, all our citizens. Chris, I've been married to my wife for 35 years, and no one questions that commitment, that lifestyle choice. Why should we question someone who has the freedom and does make a different choice? You have rights in Texas. You have rights in America to make different choices. I mean, it says so in our founding documents. Government should respect and protect freedom of expression. Government should exercise a light touch in matters of the heart.
Very, very good. Let's continue here with one that's super prominent in our current political environment: immigration and immigrant rights.
Yeah.
We've seen horrific scenes of masked, unmarked officers and unmarked cars snatching people off the streets. It's surreal, frankly. Talk about, and I get myself worked up when I start talking about this, but let's be nice and cool about this and talk about your views on immigrants' rights and what should be happening with the border, what should be happening with people who are already here. What are your views?
Well, exactly, Chris. And we are going to keep it cool here because it is very easy to get worked up at the horror that's unfolding every day. Immigration is the continental divide of American politics. And I understand that some Americans are concerned about our economy, jobs, and our country's future. Times are tough and uncertain. Donald Trump has taken advantage of those concerns and identified a boogeyman, and it is the immigrant. But serious American leaders must be able to distinguish between immigration and crime. Immigrants are people seeking freedom, which America has historically embraced. Texas has too, Chris. And our economy, which the Republicans like to pat themselves on the back and refer to as the Texas miracle, and our lifestyle depend on immigrant labor as much as it does oil and gas. Cartel crime, on the other hand, human trafficking and drug trafficking are indictable offenses under the United States Code. The Texas Attorney General can do something about that. The Texas Attorney General must be a serious leader who understands the difference between immigration and crime. So what I propose to do as your next Texas Attorney General is to hire 20 mature prosecutors. They would be called Special Assistant U.S. Attorneys, SAUSs. The last person to do this was John Cornyn in his brief 2-year time as Attorney General. And what we do is put 10 of them in the Western District of Texas, Chris, which is a judicial district running from El Paso to Eagle Pass. And we'd put 10 in the Southern District, which goes from Webb County, Laredo, to Brownsville. And they would indict and convict cartel members who are breaking the law. But dreamers, immigrants, and asylum seekers are afforded rights under our Constitution, and the rule of law is worthy of our respect. So, as Attorney General, I will protect and defend the Constitution, and that means that pledge is made to everyone affording rights, okay? So, dreamers, immigrants with documentation, and asylum seekers who, by operation of law, are documented as at least being able to assert that claim should be treated with respect. There's a big difference between them and criminals.
Absolutely. And that's such a basic sort of idea to wrap your head around. And so thank you for illuminating it that way. Very close to that is our existing criminal justice system in Texas as it stands, in terms of racial justice, in terms of the conditions under which people are incarcerated in our state. What's your assessment of this is the AG's job, is to oversee the criminal justice system in our state. What's the state of it now, and how would you seek to change it?
Well, one of the most profound things that we can do is support legalization of personal use amounts of marijuana. I talked about this at length in the prior campaign. And, because we picked green as our color. We're going to use green again as our color. I respect local decision-making authority on policing and prosecution. And if a city like San Marcos or Houston or Dallas wants to pass a charter provision that allows for the decriminalization of personal use amounts of marijuana before the state makes the right choice, as we're working our way toward a legislature that will respect that, then as Attorney General, I will not harass, prosecute, and demonize these local authorities. I'm against for-profit prisons. I am for local jurists who innovate with specialty courts. Here in Harris County, I spent the weekend with several of our sitting felony and misdemeanor court judges. They are great innovators: sober court, mental health court, veterans court, drug court. And Harris County is a leader in this. Not that you would ever get that impression from listening to our governor. So I think that there are any number of stories on the spectrum of criminality, and people who are murderers and rapists and serial killers, they are obviously worthy of our great contempt, but we're going to deal with them as the rule of law requires. I would like, as a married man and a father of two, and a compassionate human being who wants people to be safe and to go about their life, I want to keep dangerous people off the streets to the maximum we can. And that is being done. But I also think demonizing our major metropolitan areas because they just happen to be led by Democrats is the game that's being played by the Republicans. Going back to my opening comments about how they'll just do anything to stay in power. To them, this whole election process is just a game of hide and seek. And I think we're tired of it. It's clearly harming our children and harming our society. We are worthy of so much better.
Let's close this lightning round with one that has been a bit of a pitfall for some Democratic candidates in the past, and that's guns in Texas. The ending of gun violence, what needs to happen in terms of restriction of gun access. What are your? It's again a difficult topic, I think, for a lot of progressive folks, but it's an important topic and a prominent one in Texas. It's just part of our cultural makeup. So tell us about your views on guns.
Well, it is. I mean, I learned to shoot guns at a summer camp, much like Camp Mystic that has been in the news. And look, I've been a responsible gun owner. My family has been a responsible gun owner, and responsible gun owners throughout Texas recognize that safety and gun ownership go together. It's a
Right.
crime when guns are used to kill or injure another person, except in matters of self-defense. And, Chris, I'll say it. I mean, it's good to have a gun, and it's good to know how to use one when someone is trying to kill you or injure you or break into your home. Guns are vital tools for hunting. They are collection items. People are proud to collect them and show off their collection. I get it. I understand and support all of that. But let's get real. Kids can't defend themselves. They deserve special care and attention. I don't think the Texas legislature has had a thoughtful, unbiased, apolitical discussion about reasonable gun ownership rules to protect our kids. So I challenge our next Texas legislature to pass common sense, fair gun ownership rules to protect all children. And I pledge to defend those laws in court.
Very, very good. Joe Jaworski is running for Attorney General of Texas. Joe, it's been great seeing you around lately. We've run into each other on the south steps of the Capitol during the No Kings rally. And also that same weekend, actually, at the 134 PAC's Rural Democrats rally out in Bastrop. So those have been great occasions. And I want to thank you for letting Progress Texas be part of your campaign announcement here. Let's close with what your message is to Texas voters. We have a little bit of runway between here and November of 2026. And so what do you leave them with today?
Well, I am a full-time Texas lawyer and have been for 35 years, fighting for clients' constitutional and civil rights against notorious wrongdoers and offenders. And as a former Galveston mayor, I have significant experience in the operation of state and local government, disaster planning and recovery, open government, and the rule of law. The last 30 years have been brutal. It didn't start off that way, but by now, the entire weight of those 3 decades is showing its effect. Texas deserves so much better, Chris. And I think it all starts with the Texas Attorney General's office, because we need an impartial, unbiased, mature investigator to keep corruption out of government. It's all about living well, living free, and most importantly, protecting our children. And I just don't think Texas government is doing that right now. And it's Democrats' job right now to restore order to the great state of Texas.
Tell us about your website, where people can find more, Joe.
Thank you so much. Website is jaworski4texas.com, and that's spelled out FOR. And all our socials are linked onto that website, along with further information about our campaign. It will be a great pleasure to meet voters out in the state. No one's going to out hustle Joe Jaworski on the campaign trail. And so I'm looking forward to doing that all the way through November 2026. And then we will have a big party in Austin to celebrate the first Democrat elected in 3 decades to serve in the Texas Attorney General's office.
Joe, thanks again for joining us. It's been really, really nice talking to you, as it always is. And so, best of luck and stay safe out on the trail.
Thanks, Chris. Onward.
Very, very good. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the conservative disinformation machine, which is funded by oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups, all while fact-based independent media outlets increasingly face threats to their funding. While access to those outlets is frequently free, as it is here at Progress Texas, it does take listener and viewer support to keep fact-based independent media going. If you've come to appreciate what we do at Progress Texas, now more than ever, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks again, Joe Jaworski, and we'll catch you again next time.